Well, hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or you're streaming the show live on either station's streaming app. Both are free to download and both are free to use. You can also watch the show on a daily basis anywhere you scroll, as long as you follow one of those two radio stations, or you can follow me at Gingerly Tweets on X and at Gingewatch on Instagram. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics over the course of the program, and I'd love to get your thoughts at 719-247-1313. You can call or text them in, or if you are watching the live stream, you can simply drop a comment right there. Today is going to be an interesting exercise, or maybe this week will be an interesting exercise, because when it comes to preseason, either all of it matters or none of it matters. Okay? All of it matters or none of it matters. Because the last thing that you or I can do today is go, well, that one doesn't count, while we were effusive with our praise of the Denver Broncos in their preseason opener. It all counts or none of it counts. Or I should say, it all matters or none of it matters. If you want to praise the Denver Broncos for the way that they played against Atlanta, you better be ready to criticize them for the way they played against Green Bay. And look at it with a critical eye and say what is going on or what happened with the Denver Broncos. Now, I can tell you, in case you're deciding what side of that fence to be on, I can tell you who thinks all of it matters. It's Sean Payton.
We can't just say, hey, this is preseason 2. We had other, each phase saw their share of what ended up being the final score.
And that final score was not pretty. In case you did not see, it was 33-13 that they lost to the Green Bay Packers. A team that is much better and projected to be much better than the Atlanta Falcons this year. So I think that matters. That's something worth noting, right? The Broncos look great against the garbage team and don't look good against the good team. But as Sean Payton said, there wasn't a phase of the game that the Broncos were even or better than the Packers in.
I can't think of one area that we played or outplayed them, honestly. And that, I'm just being honest.
So here's what you could say about this. The Broncos took a step forward against the Atlanta Falcons in their preparations for the upcoming season. And they at least took that same distance in a step back, if not further. Right? So the Broncos are essentially, at best, back to neutral. Right? You thought this was a team that was ready for the regular season, all just throwing Bo Nix, and then boom. Right? They'd be ready to rock and roll. Look at what Jared Stidham did. Okay, well, they had Bo Nix on Friday. And they lost 33-13. But I do have to say that Bo Nix was the least of their issues. So as we start to sift through this all and figure out what's wrong, what's right, I thought Bo Nix played fine. I didn't think that Bo Nix was, unstoppable. I don't think he was perfect. But the guy completed more passes than he didn't. He looked good mobility-wise. He hits R.J. Harvey for a touchdown. The one thing I'll say about Bo Nix is, as far as him showing some signs that he's going to be better this year, I'll tell you, him on the run, even though we love the thought of Bo Nix getting out and using his legs. It's certainly a great way for him to avoid sacks. We know how important that is in a Sean Payton offense. And I think you and I both hope that Davis Webb will allow Bo Nix to take some of those rollouts and say, go. Maybe Friday wasn't the day to do it. They wanted to showcase some of his mobility, but not the actual running ability. And that's fine. We'll see, if he plays against Minnesota, or we got to wait for week 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs to see Bo Nix actually run with the football. But surgically repaired ankle and all, look pretty mobile. Look pretty good rolling out on some of those passes. Here's the problem. Bo Nix last year was not very accurate when he was on the run. Every quarterback is going to be less accurate if they're on the run. Like that happens for everybody. But if you are a quarterback who, if we're looking at the best version of Bo Nix, and this word has been brought up a lot with Bo Nix, superpower. What is his superpower? It's his legs. Okay? If you're a quarterback that applies to, you have to be more accurate on those passes on the run than Bo Nix was last year. Bo Nix last year threw more passes, a higher percentage of his passes on the move than any other quarterback, not just in the NFL last year, but this from Next Gen Stats in the history of Next Gen Stats. 26% of his throws were on the run. His completion percentage from his rookie year to his second year was down. You think there's a correlation? You think there's maybe a causation here? If Bo Nix is going to use his legs, and that is part of what makes him so difficult to defend and what will make him supposedly one of the best quarterbacks in the league, as Sean Payton foretold a couple of years ago, he's got to be able to hit more of those passes on the run. And the one thing I will say, his pocket presence was very good because he had a pocket, like a giant-sized pocket. But when he was in the pocket, he was accurate. That's where he delivered that ball to R.J. Harvey for the touchdown. But the passes he missed were all on the run. If we're looking at ways that Bo Nix can get better, that has to be one of them. And it's not about Bo Nix being just as accurate on the run as he is in the pocket, but we got to find a balance here. If you want to simplify it, Bo Nix, as a thrower of the football, when his legs are moving, is not great. That's been the case for 2 years. Okay, whether he's trying to stand in the pocket and he's getting happy feet or he's rolling out, that's where he has to improve. If he is not set and delivering a pass, his accuracy numbers go down, and they go down at a rate that is not commensurate with most quarterbacks. So Bo Nix overall, I would say it was good. But in one of the key areas that I think he has to be better in, I don't think he was better. Every throw that he missed was him not being set. In the pocket, he needs to help that. On the run, you can't help it. You're going to be moving. But this is part of what Bo Nix is supposed to be so dangerous in, is his ability to run. He's not dangerous if he is inaccurate when he gets out of the pocket and rolls. So that's something that Bo Nix is going to have to be better in this year, and I did not see an improved Bo Nix in that area. So the idea that Bo Nix made light work of the Green Bay Packers, like I expected him to, he didn't. But it was good. especially when you look at the quarterback play of the Denver Broncos the rest of the way in that game, is good. The other big positive that I saw was you saw only on one pass, but that's all you needed. You saw exactly what Jalen Waddle brings to the table. Right? He beats the guy covering him immediately. And even when somebody else comes over to help when he makes the catch, that was, I thought, a little bit behind. I didn't think that was the best pass from Bo Nix, but it was on target at least. Jalen Waddle catches it with a guy right on him, and he's still able to turn it up the field for a few more yards. Now, we'll wait and see Jalen Waddle on the deep ball, because that's the other part of his game that he's supposed to bring to the table for the Denver Broncos. But in terms of what he is best at and what jives the best with the Broncos offense, you saw it on that one completion. Gets open quickly for Bo Nix and is still, even if there's a defender on him, able to make a guy miss and get a few more yards. That's one of the reasons why the Denver Broncos brought Jalen Waddle in. So you saw that, albeit on one play. So the offensive side of things, I don't think it was perfect. It maybe even wasn't the level that I expected it to be, but let's put in proper perspective here. The issue is their defense. And that was poor from the moment the game started. Okay, you could say that the offense was fine to good when Bo Nix and the ones were out there. The minute Jared Stidham came in, everything went to crap with the Broncos offense. And we could talk about that a little bit more later. The defense was bad from the start. Jordan Love, and I get it, they're no exotic looks. It's, a hat on a hat, vanilla, and a quarterback like Jordan Love should be able to pick the Denver Broncos defense apart, and he absolutely did. But Green Bay was playing the same way without Micah Parsons, and I saw Jordan Love outplay Bo Nix. But beyond that, with the defense, the missed tackles, getting manhandled by the Packers offensive line and losing the line of scrimmage, like that's when Sean Payton came in. That was the thing that he set out to fortify first, was the trenches, the line of scrimmage on both the offensive and defensive side of the football. That's what he wanted to do. And that's where there's some questions, right? John Franklin Myers leaves. Okay, Malcolm Roach. I think we all kind of thought Malcolm Roach was capable of taking a step up. That John Franklin Myers would not be this huge loss. Wasn't in game one. They missed him in game two. And when I talk about the Broncos' potential regression this year, Bo Nix and the offense got something to keep them from regressing. They got Jalen Waddle. And maybe Davis Webb as well. Right? It's early on Davis Webb. I don't think it was his finest performance in his 3 games calling plays. But we'll wait and see if Davis Webb is a huge asset to this Broncos offense. But they have Jalen Waddle. Right? And now that's the guy that's supposed to make the offense regression proof. Who did the defense add to help them be regression proof? Who is that player? The answer is nobody. They didn't bring in anybody to help. And this being a team that did not create many turnovers and was on the field a ton last year. That's actually the side of the football when I talk about the Broncos regressing that I think could be worse than it was a year before. The offense, I think you have reason to believe it will be better. Even if Bo Nix doesn't take a step, just everything in total with, Jalen Waddle being in the mix and Davis Webb's ideas and a healthy J.K. Dobbins for the whole season, Jonah Coleman, like the Broncos did work on the offensive side to think that they will not be worse than they were a year ago and could be better. On the defensive side of things, that's where you worry if there's going to be a little bit of regression, because if the Broncos defense is going to be on the field as much as they were last year, they're not going to hold up. They have got to create turnovers, or they need an offense that is going to keep their defense on the sideline and basically routinely put together drives like Green Bay did on their first drive, where they're out there for what felt like an hour. The offense can certainly help in that. But when I look at the Broncos and say, where could they be worse this year? It's the defensive side. And when I say worse, I'm not saying worse like top 3 to 32nd in the league. But where is the area for regression? It's on the defensive side of the football. The sack numbers that they put up, the lack of turnovers, all of this kind of stuff together could see the Broncos defense slip a little bit from where they were a year ago. Can the offense pick it up enough to counteract that? That's what we'll find out this season. But you saw some of the warning signs for a Broncos defense that may not be quite what they were last season. And special teams, not great. Not to gloss over this special teams battle, but let's be honest, we're more focused on the offense and the defense. Offense, fine until Jared Stidham came in the game. Defense all night left a lot to be desired. So again, I say all of it matters or none of it matters. If you're a person that says the preseason doesn't matter, then you're good. You didn't put any stock into what happened against Atlanta. You don't put any stock into what happened in Green Bay. But if last week you were feeling like, wow, the Denver Broncos, look at them against the Atlanta Falcons, well, what are you saying today? And I'm in that group with you, by the way. I was effusive with my praise of the Denver Broncos after the Atlanta game. So I have to be fair. I have to, as the kids say, keep the same energy. I put some weight behind the preseason, as does Sean Payton. They got credit for what happened against Atlanta. They do deserve criticism for what happened Friday night in Denver. I'll take your thoughts. Any direction you want to go with the Broncos, you are welcome to. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, let's go elsewhere in the NFL. The biggest story of the day, the last week, is that Cleveland has gotten around to picking their starting quarterback. And if you heard some comments from one of them on Saturday, you were probably shocked to find out the decision they made. That's next. If you needed a reminder of how the sports team that you love maybe doesn't love you or even respect you at the same level, if you doubt that there's reciprocity in terms of the affection and the love and the support that you give your favorite team, and they don't return it back in kind, may I present to you the Cleveland Browns? Because what the Cleveland Browns decided to do today, by naming Deshaun Watson their starting quarterback, is they said, Browns fans, we don't care about you. We don't care. We are making this decision for us because we want some possibility that maybe we won't be forever the gold standard for awful trades. And make no mistake about it, the Deshaun Watson trade has surpassed the Herschel Walker trade. Okay, I don't need the Houston Texans to go on and win a Super Bowl to say that. What has happened with Deshaun Watson is enough. This is the worst trade in the history of the NFL, and the fact that the Cleveland Browns would rather try to take back a little bit of respect to have to give Deshaun Watson a chance to show that the quarterback he was in Houston is still partly there, while giving, I'll say, thumbing their nose at the fans rather than a different gesture that is even more incendiary. Doing that while thumbing your nose at your fan base is just a line that even the Cleveland Browns have not crossed. Like, they've been inept, right? They've made terrible decisions, and they've been a terrible football franchise pretty much every year since they were brought back into the league. Okay, but this is another level. This is something different. Deshaun Watson took a flamethrower to the Browns fan base after the preseason game this weekend, and Todd Monken 2 days later named the guy their starting quarterback. If you need a refresher on what Deshaun Watson said, he was booed on Saturday, and Deshaun Watson, and there's a lot of this going around right now in sports, tried to play the victim in all of this.
I think you guys know too, and I think the whole world knows. It has nothing to do about the performance. It's a little bit personal than that. So I think it's a disrespectful thing. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna keep whatever I feel with me and my family internally on how I feel about that. And yeah, just move on.
Deshaun Watson's disrespected. I want to underscore that. Deshaun Watson feels disrespected, as if the guy understands what respect for another human being even looks like. That's first of all. The second part of that, actually, Deshaun, the Cleveland Browns fans booing you was about performance because you were objectively terrible on Saturday. It was about your performance. The booing was about your performance. The way everyone feels about you, that's based on the personal stuff. I have no stake in the success or failure of the Cleveland Browns this year. The fans do, and that's what they cared most about. That was what the booing was for, that you stunk. What everybody else hates you for, you're right. It's not about performance. It really isn't. So right away, Deshaun Watson is on a completely different plane of existence because he doesn't even understand what is going on around him, or he refuses to believe it. But he was asked a simple question. You think if you just played better, though, that you wouldn't get booed. Deshaun Watson, victim once again.
Last time I played on this field, I tore my Achilles. And that same fan base, they cheered when I got hurt. So does that have to do with, what does that have to do with anything about performance? When a person get hurt, especially for your own city, and they cheer.
And this is the one part I don't want to put myself on Deshaun Watson's side at all, but yeah, you shouldn't boo somebody for tearing their Achilles. I'm sorry. You shouldn't do that. But I think that certainly shows that there is a fractured relationship between Deshaun Watson and the city that he represents that just makes it a bad idea that the Cleveland Browns make him their starting quarterback. They don't like him. He doesn't like them. So why are you doing this? Here's Todd Monken, the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, as to why he is starting Deshaun Watson week 1.
Deshaun is going to start against Jacksonville. Took in the full body of work over the course of off-season to training camp to the games, the joint practice, and ultimately felt like to start the season on the road, Deshaun gave us the best chance to move the ball and score points. I mean, that's really what it's about.
Man, I would love to have seen these behind-the-scenes stuff because I have not seen anything with my own eyes and have not heard anything from people who see things with the Cleveland Browns with their own eyes that says that Deshaun Watson is demonstrably better than Shedeur Sanders. So Deshaun Watson, maybe let's play the hypothetical game. So let's say that Todd Monken is not so deluded that he actually sees that Deshaun Watson was terrible on Saturday. Okay. And all he's referring to is the stuff that we don't see. Well, I got to bring this up. The game against Jacksonville will be televised. People will be there, yes? So if the problem is Deshaun Watson behind the scenes in practice, great, much better than Shedeur, but just when we can put the two quarterbacks next to each other and measure them, whether it's practice or the game, he's not. Well, guess what? The Jacksonville game is going to be seen by people. So if Deshaun Watson's whole issue right now is he's got some stage fright, that's going to be a problem when week 1 comes around. There is nothing to justify this decision from a football perspective. And Todd Monken even contradicts himself, or at least underscores my point when he was asked how Shedeur Sanders took the news. Listen to this, and if this isn't another reason why they should have actually started Shedeur instead of Deshaun Watson, I don't know what is.
I mean, you talk about somebody that really understands the long game, that really, I think, has come to understand the long game, right? What are we really in this for? What am I in it for? To have the Browns be an organization that people aspire to be, right? The long game, right? Where do we want to be in the long term, right? Whatever that, and he understands that as well as a quarterback, right? Where he was at, where he's at now, where he wants to get to.
Doesn't that just illustrate my point? First of all, starting Deshaun Watson and defending Deshaun Watson is not going to make you a pillar of anything to anybody. So this idea that the Browns are going to be held up as this great example because they rehabilitated Deshaun Watson, one, there's zero chance that he's going to show anything on the field to do that. And second, a lot of people aren't, even if he plays well, aren't going to look at the Cleveland Browns like that's a model organization. We should pattern ourselves after them. So that's out the window by making this decision, Todd Monken. But the rest of it is what I'm seizing on. How can you say that you're about the bigger picture when you're starting Deshaun Watson? Okay? There is no world where you are, no world where the other three teams in your division are healthy where you finish anything but fourth. Okay? So this team isn't winning this year. So they have to look at the big picture. What good does it do them to play Deshaun Watson? Because if you play Shador, then either he unlocks something and becomes your quarterback of the future, or he doesn't. You get a high draft pick and you know for a fact that your next franchise quarterback isn't on your roster. So you go out and draft one. You want to talk about the long game. You want to talk about the big picture. You starting Deshaun Watson is as short-sighted as it could possibly be. So I go back to the point I made right at the top of this segment here. This is, to me, only about the Browns trying to get a little bit of equity back. Because if Deshaun Watson looks decent, then they're not the gold standard for the worst trades in sports history. They get a little bit of ROI on that ridiculous deal that we all said at the beginning they shouldn't have made to get Deshaun Watson to Cleveland. He didn't even want to go to Cleveland. You had to overpay him just so he would come there. And this was a guy that was facing everything he was facing off the field, and he told the Browns no. That should have been it then and there. But this is not, I hope it's not a Todd Monken decision. Because I actually like Todd Monken. I hope that his boss is the one making him do this. I wish somebody would have asked him, blink twice, tell him blink twice if you're being held hostage. I hope that's the case. Because you know what? Jenny Haslam, I have no respect for the guy anyway. That guy's public perception could not be worse. But Todd Monken still has a chance here to carve out a nice little head coaching career for himself. I hope he's not really looking at this and saying Deshaun Watson is not only the right decision right now, he's better for the bigger picture. But they don't care. If you are a Browns fan, they don't care about you. They have heard you loud and clear, repeatedly. And they just ignored you. They ignored you, and they're starting Deshaun Watson anyway. I thought when Todd Monken came, I actually read it completely wrong because I heard Daniel Jeremiah this morning on the Dan Patrick show. He's like, when Todd Monken came out and said that Deshaun Watson's comments were not going to impact his decision, he took that as Deshaun Watson's going to be the starter. I thought he was setting it up so it wouldn't seem like it was his comments that disqualified him and made Shador the starter. I actually completely misread this. So I was genuinely surprised that they started Deshaun Watson because there is zero argument from a football perspective, from a support of your fan base perspective. There's no reason. This is the guy with the purse strings picking up the bat phone and saying you're going to start Deshaun Watson if he's healthy. That's what this has to be. But unfortunately, Todd Monken has to go out and act like it was his idea and act like this is anything but an objectively terrible idea for the Cleveland Browns. I know look, and we're dealing with this here in Colorado with the Nuggets, right? we know there's a gap, there's a disparity between how much we support the franchise and how much this franchise supports us. But I thought that the discrepancy was a little bit less than what we're seeing in Cleveland right now. They just do not care at all what one of the most loyal and dedicated fan bases in all of sports thinks. And that's crazy to me. 719-247-1313. Your thoughts on Deshaun Watson being named the starter of the Cleveland Browns. So the Browns quarterback decision has certainly elicited some thoughts from you. Let's go to them now. 719-247-1313. The Browns are just one bad decision after another, but this one takes the cake. They are their own worst enemy. I can only imagine what the locker room is like and how all the players bust their butts every day, feel about their decision-making. They're literally just a laughing stock in the NFL. Baker's so lucky he got out of there. That coming in from the 719. Now, what I will say, and we wish this wasn't the way it was, but it is this way. If the players in the locker room felt like Deshaun Watson gave them a much better chance of winning than Shedeur, they would support Deshaun Watson being their quarterback. We have to be fair. We have to be real about this. There is very little, because we have seen athletes take this to the extreme, right? If a player was eligible to play and was a better option to help the team win games, they would be fine with it. But that's what makes this a doubly poor decision. Because I just don't, like, for a moment, if we can, let's separate Deshaun Watson, the garbage human being, from Deshaun Watson, the garbage quarterback. He wasn't good. He wasn't better than Shedeur was on Saturday. I don't know what Todd Monken's talking about. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, the stuff that we have seen with our own eyes doesn't say that Deshaun Watson's better than Shedeur. But coaches use this as protection. They say, well, you don't see everything. Okay, but again, we're going to see week 1 against Jacksonville, and week 2 and week 3, we're going to watch all of Deshaun Watson on the football field this year. So if it's stage fright, if he's doing all the right things behind the scenes, but not in, which is, I don't believe that, but he can't do anything right when he's on the field in public, then that's a problem. So that's what makes it doubly, it's the football's not better. If we just want to talk about the football, I don't know that this makes sense. And that's, it's like Deshaun Watson when he's talking about, well, I'm not getting booed because of my play. Yes, you are. Yes, you were. It absolutely was about your play on Saturday. Not about everything else. Now, when you go to Jacksonville, guess what? It's not going to be about your play. It's going to be about everything else. But in Cleveland, like, I legitimately believe that Cleveland fans were booing him because he sucked. And I've seen at Broncos games, Bo Nix get booed. The offense gets booed for the first 3 and out of a football game. Like, it is really not about the other. As far as Saturday goes, Deshaun, it is not about the other stuff. The other stuff just makes it so no one is happy that you're the starter. Inside or outside of the Cleveland Browns fan base. This one from the 719. Early quarterback controversy and drama is never good for a team. Grateful we don't have one. We being the Broncos, I'm guessing, with Tony texting in, says poor Brownies. And it is a fan base that deserves this the least. If we could really gauge this, there is no fan base that deserves Deshaun Watson and everything associated with him less than the Cleveland Browns. All they have done is been diehard football fans, supported their team. They even tried, as difficult as I know it was for them, they tried to put on a happy face and tried to back up their organization when they brought in Deshaun Watson. And I know, having been a fan of a team that Tyreek Hill played for, it's difficult. But they still supported. And they're going to support through this. And that's the thing. Sports fans get taken advantage of. They do a lot. These billionaire owners take advantage of us. But, like, look, the boycott thing never works. We talked about the boycott stuff with the Colorado Rockies. It will never work. And also, really, should we be asking? I heard Dan Orlovsky on ESPN said, Browns fans should boycott. What? Something that they should give up, something that they love and is a part of their life because the billionaire in charge is a moron? Like, I used to be on the boycott the Rockies thing. And then the first step was I realized that it's not feasible because Coors Field's a delightful place and people are still going to show up. And the second thing I went, wait a minute. If you want to go a Rockies game, go for it. I'm going to tell you, don't have a nice evening out. Don't watch sports. Like, come on, what are we talking about here? And it's easy for Dan Orlovsky to... Did CAA tell him to say that, or was that an original thought from him? I'm not sure these days. Browns fans aren't going to boycott. They're going to keep going to the games. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that they should be the ones to take, measures and not the organization themselves. I feel like the organization should be the ones that are proactive and say, you know what, this isn't a good idea for us. Let's not do this. This from the 575, par for Cleveland's usual course. I mean, in making bad decisions, yes, I would agree. I do think that this is another level, if we're being fair. Like, this is a different level for the Cleveland Browns. This whole Deshaun Watson thing, starting with the fact that they were willing to trade for him, willing to overpay for him. And that's the thing that just drives me up the wall about Deshaun Watson and what he said on Saturday. Like, he acts like he is doing Cleveland a favor. He was asked, does all of this make you regret coming to Cleveland? Listen to this guy.
No, I don't regret anything in my life.
Whoa, hang on. Whoa. Let's stop right there. You don't regret anything in your life, Deshaun Watson? There's not anything, there's not a moment or two where you feel like, you know what, should have done better there. Not one regret, not one. I can think of things you should regret. But anyway, here's Deshaun Watson still.
No, I don't regret anything in my life. I think the Lord put me through situations for a reason. So I don't regret anything at all. But, I had different thoughts on how it was going to be. But, it is what it is.
He felt like he was going to be viewed as the football savior. That line from Draft Day at the very beginning of the movie. Say yes to this trade and you will save football in Cleveland. That's what Deshaun Watson thought. After he told the Browns no. After he said, I'm not going there. He already told them no once, so they had to pay more for him. And then he shows up and he's like, why doesn't everybody love me? Not that I want to get into the head of somebody that conducts himself in the way Deshaun Watson does, but just crazy to me. You didn't even want to be there. And you think that Cleveland fans are what, too dumb to understand that you didn't want to even be there? Is coming from the 719. Sometimes you got to cut your losses. We did it with Russell Wilson. You did. And I will just piggyback on top of that. You made the playoffs with the largest dead cap hit in league history. So, what's the Browns' excuse? More Drive Time Sports after this. Welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening to the show, Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or you're watching it anywhere you scroll. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X, Instagram, all of those places, streaming the show live each and every day, and more of you are tuning in that way, and I certainly do appreciate it. Speaking of social media, I am at Gingerly Tweets on X, at Gingewatch on Instagram if you want to follow me on those platforms, and we could chat during and outside of the show about sports or movies. I watched Lanterns, the first 2 episodes, highly recommend. So I have TV recommendations. I'm a pleasant person. Pleasant to converse with. Anyway, speaking of conversing, 719-247-1313, another good way to get in touch with me while I am on the show. Get to more of your thoughts on the Browns choosing Deshaun Watson, because that is the topic du jour from a national perspective. Deshaun Watson getting the nod over Shedeur Sanders. And there is a Shedeur side of this story that I want to get into as well. But let's get back to the Broncos and just in totality, a pretty wretched performance in preseason game number 2. Wasn't without its brightish spots. I mean, Bo Nix is healthy. Other than Riley Moss, the Broncos escaped the game as a whole healthy. Jalen Waddle, the one catch he made, you saw exactly why Jalen Waddle was brought to Denver. But overall, 33-13, it was bad. It was the polar opposite of what you got in week 1 against Atlanta. And to me, and I asked the question to start the show today, either all of it matters or none of it matters. Right? Basically, either you take preseason seriously or you don't. And if you don't, then that's fine. But then you can't praise the Denver Broncos for the way they looked against Atlanta, and that way you don't have to criticize them against Green Bay. I am somebody that thinks you get out what you put into it. Sean Payton plays his starters. Right? He doesn't do joint practices. He cares. The Broncos had a winning streak going in the preseason. And where's Donnie? Where's my Ravens fans? At some point, didn't you take a little bit of pride in that this was an organization that won all those preseason games? I know it sounds silly, but it's what we got. It's the stage of the season that we are in. And yes, the next stage means much more. We all understand this, whether you're a big preseason person or not. We all understand that the main event is coming up in 3 weeks' time. But how are things trending? What are the early signs? After week 1, it was like, book the trip to LA. After week 2, it's like, well, the Broncos might need a third preseason game. But one thing I will tell you that's a positive here. There's one person who will never admit to this. You won't get him to do this. But I believe it in my soul. Sean Payton secretly loves what happened on Friday. Like, once he kind of has some distance, right? Like, I legitimately believe Sean Payton was frustrated and up and angry and thought that all the good stuff that they did against Atlanta was undone. Like, I believe his emotions right after the game. But one thing I know about coaches, what they love above everything else is to be able to coach. And there's no better opportunity to coach up your team than after they lose. And when they lose bad, when they lose by 20 at home, preseason or no, that is a perfect time and gives Sean Payton all the license in the world to coach up this team, and on a personal level, to be able to bring back the old Sean Payton, right? One of the main storylines of this preseason is that Sean Payton has shown his softer side. He's taken the team to go see Spider-Man. He's turning over play calling duties. He's getting emotional when Drew Brees is asking him to present him at the Hall of Fame. Like, this is a softer side of Sean Payton. Well, now your team loses 33-13. Now you can put that softer side away and say, I'm still the same mean cuss I've always been. So with some distance, with time to reflect, a cooling down period, if you will, Sean Payton likes the fact that Friday happened. Because he can saunter into that locker room and say, you guys have not earned bleep yet. You guys haven't won anything. And I can't help but think, especially on the defensive side of the football, that the Broncos kind of walked into that game thinking that, you know, we're the big bad Broncos. We went to the AFC Championship. We're one of the best defenses. And they got punched in the mouth by Green Bay. They absolutely got punched in the mouth, because it's not just Jordan Love picking them apart like he did on that first drive, but it's the fact that they got manhandled at the point of attack. Pat Surtain got beat twice on a crossing route. Couldn't bring down a ball carrier on the same drive. Malcolm Roach missing a tackle that would have been a loss on the play or no gain. So I think there was a little bit of that. I think there's a little bit of the defense going, okay, it's preseason. We're the Broncos. We're at home. Our team just, you know, we put it to Atlanta. Why should we expect anything different? And they got punched in the mouth. But that's not a bad thing. Sean Payne was asked earlier this afternoon, just a little bit ago, honestly, if this provides one of those nice little coaching moments that people like Sean Payton love so much. So, and that's another thing that you put in the column of why preseason matters. Right? And I understand what Sean Payne is saying. Something like Friday does happen. Okay, I remember preseasons where the Chiefs or the Patriots had really bad outings, really bad practices. It does happen. And what Sean Payne is saying there is you just hope that the peak is for week one. Well, now we don't know. We're not on track for the peak to be week one. We got to see what happens against Minnesota this week. Right? And there's Sean Payton once again lending credence to the idea that preseason matters, because this is a team that has notoriously stumbled out of the gate, and they have a schedule set up to where they can't afford that. right? Everyone, yeah, I know the back half of the schedule looks just absolutely tasty. I mean, we could be, Charles Dickens, a tale of two seasons here. Like, that second half could be, the Broncos looking like the Harlem Globetrotters, like against the Washington Generals. Like, look at the back half of their schedule. But the problem is, the tough part is at the beginning, and you can play yourself out of it. You can't win anything that early in the season, but you can lose something. And part of that just depends on your perspective of the division. If you think Kansas City's coming back with a vengeance, if you believe in the Chargers, then you're going to put even more weight and more stock into the Broncos needing a fast start. Because if the other two teams come out of the gate hot, the Broncos, it could be essentially a wrap by the time they get to the easy part of their schedule. Like, the math may not math by that time. Because then you'd be hoping that the Chargers go through a stretch where they lose 4 or 5, or Kansas City does that. Yes, some of this with Sean Payton is, stick and carrot, right? You dangle the carrot sometimes, you use the stick sometimes. And it's an easy thing for Sean Payton to do after a game like Friday is be like, man, I don't know. Right? And get his team to respond and elevate their game here. And I don't think Sean Payton is panicking. But I think there is a lot of truth to what Sean Payton is saying is like, we don't start off well, and we need to start off well this season. The last 2 years, it didn't burn us. Last year, Kansas City was a shell of their former selves. Baltimore the same way. Since Joe Burrow got hurt, like, there were all these things that happened that allowed the Denver Broncos to navigate a slow start to the season. 2 years ago, different circumstances, but same deal. They were able to recover, not able to recover to the level that Sean Payton wanted, to be fair, right? He didn't want them being a wild card team. That wasn't the goal. But by our standards, it was a success because they made the postseason for the first time in forever. We can debate whether this is Super Bowl or bust, but how can this season be viewed as a success if the Broncos don't win the AFC West? Like, how can we get to the point where this is a successful season if the Broncos can't even retain the thing that they own? Getting to the Super Bowl, they haven't done that yet. All right. And it does take time. So if the Broncos, lose again in the AFC Championship, I think there will be some people that say, you know what, this season wasn't a failure. But how could you say getting anything less than a division crown is a success? So that's the goal here. And maybe a slow start doesn't bury them as far as their playoff chances, but it could bury them in the division. Something that's very important to Sean Payton. So part of this is Sean Payton, or I guess the order I would put it in is that it matters and it's not good and it doesn't bode well for the Denver Broncos what happened on Friday. But it also presents an opportunity that somebody like Sean Payton very much relishes, and that is the ability to, put his team back in their place and say, you haven't done bleep yet, and have willing participants when he tries to coach them up in that film session. Look, Pat, you tried to tackle this running back by the shoulder pads. How do you think that's going to work? Bo, you got out on the run and you delivered a pass to the sideline that was off the mark that your receiver couldn't catch. Like, go down the list. Like, Sean Payton likes that he'll have open ears. Because I do believe that this is a Broncos team that has the right habits and wants to do the right thing. So a loss like that should make them all sit up in their chair in the next film session and want to be coached and want to figure out where they went wrong to get better. So it's not that Sean Payton, when I say that he secretly loves it, he secretly loves the opportunity it gives him. He doesn't love that they look like trash on Friday in front of their home fans. They don't love that now they have one preseason game to get right, and then the next game they'll play is at week 1 in Arrowhead on Monday night. But he does like the opportunity, or maybe he's making the best of a bad situation. Put it how you want to put it. But coaches love coaching. And Friday night is a perfect opportunity for Sean Payton to get a coach. Your thoughts on the Broncos 33-13 loss to the Green Bay Packers in preseason game number 2. It's the Vikings this week. Take your thoughts, 719-24-7-1313. Drive Time Sports continues next. Let's hit a couple more texts. The big story of the day, along with the Broncos loss, probably superseding it, to be honest, given the reaction from you on the text line today. Much more about the Browns' decision to name Deshaun Watson their starting quarterback. I want to get to a couple of texts. This one from Ryan. We were really robbed of an epic Hard Knocks season by choosing to film the Seahawks instead of the Browns. And at the very least, we would have seen these supposed differences between Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders that supposedly led Todd Monken to choose Deshaun Watson. Because coaches love to do this. Everything. I see everything. You don't see everything. So I know better. Well, the stuff that we all saw together, Todd Monken and you and me, says that there's no football reason to start Deshaun Watson over Shedeur Sanders. So at least with Hard Knocks, we'd get to see the behind-the-scenes stuff, the stuff at practice that we don't normally get to see, and maybe, just maybe, we would go, oh, of course they chose Deshaun Watson because of that Hard Knocks clip. I doubt it, but Todd Monken could at least not hide behind well, I see it all and you see nothing. Well, we got Hard Knocks, so we see more than you think that we do. There's no argument. There's just not. This is about catching lightning in a bottle. This is about trying to make Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam somewhat less of a laughingstock than they are, based on their decision to go get Deshaun Watson. And I actually think Andrew Berry, it's even more of a reason not to start Deshaun Watson. I think Andrew Berry has done since then actually quite a bit of good. Now, you may not have seen that manifest itself in terms of more winning, but look at this Browns roster. Outside of the most important position, I grant you, but take the rest into account. I thought he did very well in the Myles Garrett trade. I think they have a young core of skill position players that, if they can ever figure out the quarterback position, they can win. So I think Andrew Berry has actually started to dig himself out of that hole. Jimmy Haslam's never going to. Because even if it goes better with Cleveland, he still let Giannis go to Miami. So he's taking it from two different fan bases right now. There's just not, there isn't a football reason. Like, it's not. Here are the numbers. Shedeur, 15 of 22, $153, a touchdown and interception. Not great. I'm not trying to say that Shedeur Sanders was much better than him. Deshaun Watson, 16 of 27, $161, 0 touchdowns, an interception and a fumble. Okay, I know I threw a lot of numbers. Do either one of them sound much better than the other? And the answer is no. So why does the tie go to Deshaun Watson and not Shedeur Sanders? When Todd Monken is saying that what he appreciates about Shedeur is that he looks at the big picture. Well, I am imploring the Browns to look at the big picture and saying that Shedeur Sanders is better for the big picture than Deshaun Watson. And what are you going to do here? You're going to start Deshaun Watson for 2 games on the road, like Monken kept saying, on the road, on the road, on the road. So you're going to start him for the first 2 games when he falls flat on his face. You're going to start Shedeur week 3? So you're incurring this entire firestorm for a couple of games? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, just go with Shedeur. But there's a Shedeur part of this. right? Like, I'm an advocate for Shedeur starting. I think he should have. It doesn't make sense to me that Deshaun Watson is starting. However, I gave you the stats for Deshaun Watson. Shedeur did not beat that beyond a shadow of a doubt. Right? Don't misunderstand me. Shedeur Sanders did not thoroughly outplay Deshaun Watson in the preseason. The argument I am making is twofold. One, that you're alienating your fan base by making the starting quarterback somebody who absolutely hates that fan base. And two, in a season where you're not going anywhere anyway, you might as well see if Shedeur Sanders is the guy. And if he's not, then you'll know for sure, because neither one of those guys in that situation would be the quarterback of the future. So you do everything you can with the extra draft capital that you got in the Myles Garrett trade, and you make sure that you get the quarterback you love the most. And if it's Arch Manning that you love the most, then you better find something for Archie Manning to sweeten the pot for him, because I think we may have history repeating ourselves and Grandpa Archie stepping in and doing the same thing for Arch that he did for Eli. But those are tomorrow's problems, right? In the meantime, Shedeur Sanders did not thoroughly outplay Deshaun Watson. So he left a doubt in the way that he played. Okay, and that's on him. And looking long term, I mean, unless they pull the cord on or pull the plug on Deshaun Watson, at some point this season, which I guess I could see, and Shedeur comes in for however many games and saves it. I think Shedeur Sanders, the next time he steps onto the field in a regular season game for the Cleveland Browns, is trying to save his Cleveland Browns career and maybe his NFL career. Because this is now two head coaches who have said, and the reasons going into it, like, I know that there's, the call came from above. I understand that, but you still have both Kevin Stefanski and Todd Monken both telling Shedeur, no, you're not ready. And that will resonate around the league, which I hate for Shedeur because I don't think it should, because he should be starting for the Cleveland Browns and get to show on the field if he's a franchise quarterback or a starter or whatever he is, or an NFL quarterback, period. So this is the wrong decision for Cleveland. But I do think Shedeur had it within his capability to have something to say and just did not play well enough to leave no doubt. I mean, could you imagine what the conversation would be today if Shedeur thoroughly outplayed Deshaun Watson plus everything else and Deshaun Watson was named the starter? So when I say Shedeur should start, it's really not because I have been wowed by what Shedeur Sanders has done. He had his moments last year. This preseason, I don't see a lot of those moments. But it's just about this guy has more to give. I believe that. I believe that Shedeur has more to give than what he has shown so far, and I think Deshaun Watson has nothing left to give. And the Browns should be given the job to the guy that maybe there's a little bit more there. A perspective that we don't get into enough because obviously he's not there anymore, but I do find that perspective interesting. And I did think that this morning, coincidentally, I mean, what do you think Texans fans are thinking about all this, that they've been thinking about all of this. Well, we have one from the 719. This is Travis. As a Texans fan, we dodged a bullet, arrogant creep. Now, I don't know where your confidence level is in your current quarterback, but no matter how low your confidence may be in CJ Stroud right now, you do have Will Anderson, who came out of this trade, and you don't have Deshaun Watson. So you have every right to feel pretty good about yourself as a Texans fan. I still can't believe that there were teams. Let's not forget the Falcons. Teams, plural, that were willing to pay the price with everything going on to bring in Deshaun Watson. How about the Falcon fans' perspective? I mean, things aren't great for the Atlanta Falcons right now. Have you seen Tua play? You maybe saw him last week against the Broncos. Guess what? It's not getting better. They can't wait for Michael Penix to be back out on the football field again. Just got cleared from injury. Like, Tua's toast. Tua's done. There's no hope that Atlanta is going to do anything if Tua's their quarterback. It would be similar to Cleveland. Like, you have no hope with the veteran, but with the younger guy, maybe, just maybe, you have something. But even then, even with how cooked Tua looks, I still don't know that the Atlanta Falcons would have wished in retrospect that they won the bidding for Deshaun Watson. And this guy to just say the things he said on Saturday, like, just completely either he does not or chooses not to understand. It's probably the latter, but I don't really care. The fact is he said the things that he said on Saturday. And today he tried to make up for it. So Browns fans, open your ears. Here's Deshaun Watson doing what he would call apologizing.
I thought I was going to get, a little different response, but, I think, my emotions got the best of me. And, my comments wasn't intending to go at any of the fans around in the city, because there's been a lot of great fans that have been supporting me. And I know the frustration this organization have put, a lot of investment in coming, to get me back in 22. And things haven't been going the right direction that we thought it was.
You notice he said it wasn't about any of the Cleveland fans. I know days run into one another, and, my memory isn't as good as it used to be, but I feel like it just happened a couple of days ago, and I feel like I remember, well, wait a minute, I don't even need to. Does this sound like Deshaun Watson doesn't mean anything to the fans? That when he says this, is this not directed at Cleveland Browns fans? And by the way, today he said any fans.
I think you guys know too, and I think the whole world knows. It has nothing to do about the performance. It's a little bit personal than that. So I think that's it's a disrespectful thing. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna keep whatever I feel with me and my family internally on how I feel about that. And yeah, just move on.
It feels like he was directing that at Browns fans. I mean, who else was booing? I mean, the apology or whatever you want to call that is just falls so woefully short. It was 2 days ago, dude, that you just took a flamethrower to the fan base. Don't say, I didn't mean it. Not to Cleveland fans. Oh, could you identify individually the fans that were booing you, and they're all wearing jerseys of different teams? Do you know that? Like, he's just getting up there. It was probably part of the meeting when Todd Monken pulled him in and said, look, Jimmy Haslam says I have to start you, so I'm going to start you. But what you need to do is you need to go out there and you need to address your comments and walk them back. And so Deshaun Watson offered a non-apology, and I mean, this dude is just a piece of work. And a piece of work doesn't even go far enough. I hate it for you, Cleveland fans. I really do. I think you're some of my favorite people. There is not a more dedicated bunch to their team than Cleveland Browns fans. You don't deserve this. Now, your ownership deserves this. Your front office deserves this. You don't. And but I'll ask you, like, is this like, because I know that the thought process is, and you could put this through the lens of like the Raiders, right? Look at this through the lens of the Raiders. You start Kirk Cousins and you go a little way, and then you bring in Fernando Mendoza. That way you make sure that the first year isn't a complete waste, because it would be, by the way, it would be a waste for the Raiders to not play Fernando Mendoza a good amount of games. And that's subjective on what a good amount of games are. Is it 4? Is it 6? Is it 8? I don't think I've quite decided yet. I know Kirk Cousins is going to start the season. I'm pretty confident Fernando Mendoza will play at some point. I feel like it would be a waste if Fernando Mendoza didn't play. What are you doing this for? Talk about losing the big picture. So, but you look at it through the lens of the Raiders. You start with the veteran, and then you go, to the younger guy. But there's just so much more wrapped up into this. I think it's all the Deshaun Watson stuff that he brings to the table and the comments that he made on Saturday. But I also do think, too, it's with Shedeur, and I think it's fair to say that Raiders fans do have and are justified to have more hope about Fernando Mendoza in his future than the Browns have for Shedeur Sanders in his future. But that, to me, just makes it all the more reason. Just put Shedeur out there. Just do it. He wasn't a first-round pick. You don't have your whole... I think Browns fans may like Shedeur. Maybe they feel like there's a little bit more that Shedeur could be. But I don't think that they are under any misconception that Shedeur Sanders is going to be, the next Otto Graham, or like I think they realize that he's could be Mr. Right now, but not Mr. Right. All the more reason, like the Raiders got everything tied into Fernando Mendoza. The Browns have virtually nothing tied into Shedeur Sanders, which, as I'm saying it, is the reason why they're starting Deshaun Watson, because they have a lot tied up in Deshaun Watson. Still makes it the wrong decision, but that's what it came down to. I understand that teams have to make the right decisions for themselves first before the fan base. But in this situation, man, you got to think about the fan base a little bit after what Deshaun Watson said. Before that, before his comments, before the game, because, again, Deshaun Watson was terrible in that game. But before the game, okay, you'd be like, we got to make the decision that's right for us, and we got to make the fans' wants and needs secondary to ours because we're running $1 billion business here. And then Deshaun Watson wet the bed on Saturday in the preseason game. And then he said what he said after the game. Gotta think your fans a little bit. Too Pollyannish of me, I suppose. 719-247-1313. That is truly spooky timing. Cale Makar bringing us back on radio because that's who I wanted to discuss. It's been quiet on the Avs front, especially when it comes to Cale Makar's extension. Joe Sakic was at the Avalanche alumni game over the weekend and expressed confidence that they would be able to get a deal done with Cale. So nothing has changed in terms of his outlook on this situation because he expressed confidence at the end of the season press conference. Now, there is a deadline coming up. It is September 16th, and that is the deadline for the Avs to be able to offer an 8-year contract to Cale as opposed to a 7. Now, not saying that the deal won't get done by then and it won't be 8 years, but Joe Sakic said that deadline is not really a factor right now. So you're talking about the Avalanche, this dragging out to where the Avalanche can only essentially keep Cale through his age 35 season instead of his age 36 season. Now, I think the way it's going, Cale will have plenty of game left at 36 years old. So you kind of, I think, like that extra year. But also, how often have we talked about, these 8-year deals that NHL teams love to give out and how poorly they age? I don't think it's going to age poorly with Cale Makar, but to rush to get a deal done with how tight up against the cap that the Avs will be perpetually moving forward, I can understand why that extra year is not at the forefront. And we got to get this deal done by September 16th. And look, if Cale gets a deal done at 7 years, Avs are going to be Avs fans are going to be just fine. Right. And we'll worry about the 8th year, 6 years from now. Or 7, maybe even. But so there's the update on Cale. And I would say, as far as my confidence level, I think the Avs are going to get this done. And I think Cale Makar is going to I don't think he's going to take every dollar he could. He can. I don't think he will. I think he'll come in a shade under what he could get. So I think the number is going to start with a 1 and not a 2. That's just a feeling. If Cale Makar wants to take every dime, that's his prerogative. No one's saying anything to Nikola Jokic. And Nikola Jokic is waiting a year to sign his extension so he could sign the largest deal in NBA history. And nobody's saying anything to him. I even threw out the idea a few weeks ago, does any part of you just wish that Jokic would take? Not that he has to, but don't you wish he would? Crickets. Nobody was willing to speak up and say that as bad of a financial position as the Nuggets find themselves in, nobody even quietly hopes that Nikola Jokic will give the Nuggets a discount. That's how much everyone is soured on the Nuggets organization, is that you don't even hope that a superstar will give them a hometown discount. That'll teach you, Josh. But it's the same thing with Cale. Right? We found out it was right there in front of us in that playoff series against the Golden Knights. The most valuable player for the Colorado Avalanche is Cale Makar. So if he wants to take a contract where every year's salary starts with a 2 and not a 1, so be it. Find the money elsewhere. But I do think it'll start with a 1 and not a 2. Something in the teens rather than 20 is what I'm getting at. The other extension, which isn't getting as much attention, but certainly will once Cale Makar's deal gets done. No movement on Jared Bednar's extension. Are they really going to go into this season with him on a lame duck deal? That is not, we've had these conversations after the Vegas series about whether Jared Bednar's voice was falling on deaf ears, where the message growing stale, the way that the Avs collapsed at points in that Vegas series. And Avs, no. Jared Bednar, absolutely our guy. Nothing to see here. And I said at the time, okay, we can somewhat agree to disagree, but you got to show that you believe in him by extending his contract. You can't let him go into lame duck year. And maybe they won't, but that's the one to me where I'm like, well, this is really going to say something about the Avs situation and how they feel about Jared Bednar, that they won't even and I didn't even say sign him to a 5-year deal. You don't have to go crazy here. Just give him a year extension. Keep him out of a lame duck year. And maybe that's the reason why they're not in a rush to get it done, because a 1-year extension is easy enough to consummate in a short amount of time. But if they don't get a deal done with Jared Bednar before the season starts, assuming they get the Kale deal done, that's the story. That's the story, that the Avalanche organization says they believe in Jared Bednar, but they won't believe in him enough to guarantee him another year. That speaks volumes. And if it's not that, then is it because of the Cronkies that they don't, want to pay for a year that he might not be coaching the team? We certainly understand the economic thought process from the Cronkies right now with what's going on with the Denver Nuggets, but still you arrive at the same conclusion. Whether you're guaranteeing him a year where you think maybe he won't be coaching the team, or you just flat out won't offer it to him, you're saying the same thing. We believe in you, but we only believe in you to keep you for next year. And beyond that, we don't know. For a guy that has won a Stanley Cup, for a guy that helped turn your organization around. And look, I'm not anti getting a different voice in there. I'm not saying that Jared Bednar has to say. I'm saying if the Avalanche are saying that Jared Bednar's our guy, and how dare we question whether he is or not, then you need to do something. And I'm sure Jared Bednar is somewhat thinking this. Like, okay, you supported me in public and when I was under a little bit of fire, and I appreciate that. Now, can you that Mad Men line, that's what the money's for. Like, can you give me another year on my deal to show me that you truly believe in me? I don't think they could go into this year with Jared Bednar on a 1-year contract. I don't see how that works, and that immediately becomes a massive distraction and the biggest story with the team that supposedly is trying to get back to a Stanley Cup, that has every intention of playing for another Stanley Cup this year. That can't happen. So keep our eye on that. Coming up next, we'll hit the 3 stories that are driving the show: Broncos, Deshaun, and more. Hello there. Welcome in. Great to have you on this Monday, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, whether you are listening on the streaming apps of those two fine stations, or whether you are watching the show anywhere you scroll. I sincerely do appreciate it. If you'd like to take your participation in today's show to the next level, by all means, love to have you. 719-247-1313. That is the phone and text line, so you could do either, or you could simply drop a comment on the live stream you are currently watching. Perhaps you have a thought or two on the three stories that are driving the show today. All right, let's start with probably the complete opposite performance from the Denver Broncos from preseason game number 1. Here is Sean Payton.
I can't think of one area that we played or outplayed them, honestly. And that I'm just being honest.
And he's not wrong. 33-13. The Green Bay Packers trounced the Denver Broncos at Mile High. And to his point, one of the positives, I think, of the game, maybe not quite to the level of expectation I had, but certainly would classify it as a positive, Bo Nix played well. Jordan Love looked twice as good as Bo Nix did. Absolutely carved up the Broncos defense. So even the good that the Broncos did was counteracted by what Green Bay did. But again, Bo Nix, I thought, was a positive overall. What is concerning is the defense. Right? Because this last time the Broncos played the Packers, that game was kind of going in a similar direction, and then Pat Surtain got a pick, Micah Parsons got hurt, and the wheels came off of the Green Bay Packers. But when I look at this Broncos team and I say, all right, if I think they're going to regress, how are they going to regress? It's not the offensive side of the football that I expect to regress. It's the defensive side. Right? You have a team that was super reliant on getting sacks and could not create turnovers, was on the field a ton, was a lot of bend don't break. That's where I feel like, and had to hold their team in it for 3 quarters until Bo Nix and the offense decided to show up. That's where I think if the circumstances are similar this year, that's where some of the regression. I don't think this Broncos defense will hold up under the same conditions. Now, if the offense is much improved, which I don't know that I can say of the drives that Bo Nix was on that they looked much improved, but if they are much improved, then it can balance that out a little bit. But the offense, I think, has some things going for it where you say, nah, they're not going to backslide. They may not get better enough, but they're not going to regress. The defensive side is the one I look at and say, all right, can they keep all of this up? The same things they did last year. And man, did the Packers manhandle the Broncos defense. Missed tackles, gaping holes to run through. Jordan Love was just picking them apart. And I know some of that is the coverages, very vanilla, but you throw everything together and it was not a good night. Here's where it matters more than anything else. And Sean Payton talked about this today. There has been so much emphasis put on the Denver Broncos starting fast in the season, starting fast in individual games. This is how they start fast. They build up from their performances in the preseason to be as ready as they possibly can be for week one so they can hit the ground running and navigate this minefield of an early season schedule. And the step forward that I thought they took, because I'm a guy that thinks that, you know, it matters. Preseason does matter. You get out of preseason what you put in it. If you don't play any of your starters at any point, then yeah, you don't expect much. But when your starters play, you should expect something out of it. The Broncos took a step forward against the Atlanta Falcons, and they at least took that same distance in a step back against Green Bay, if not further than that. So now they have one game. Sean Payton joked on Saturday, I don't know if it was a joke, that he wanted to play his starters for 3 quarters. I think he'll soften on that a little bit. But now we go to the Minnesota game, the final preseason game, and see if the Broncos can take a step forward. And then you feel like, okay, they're more ready for the start of this season. But taking a snapshot right now, which is what we do, it's a week-to-week league, even in the preseason, not good. Very bad, actually. And they got some work to do against Minnesota to make me, and I think to a degree Sean Payton, feel like this team is ready for what's waiting for them starting on a Monday night in Kansas City. But perspective is important. Yes, it's important to have perspective in life. And for any team that may feel a little bit down about what their team did this weekend in the preseason or the injuries that they have sustained, at least your team's not doing this.
Deshaun is going to start against Jacksonville. Took in the full body of work over the course of off-season to training camp to the games, the joint practice, and ultimately felt like to start the season on the road, Deshaun gave us the best chance to move the ball and score points. I mean, that's really what it's about.
Okay, Deshaun, that was Todd Monken, Cleveland Browns head coach, doing the thing that I thought, I won't say was unthinkable, but I kept saying throughout this preseason, there's no way they're going to go Deshaun Watson, right? Like, come on. Come on. You're not going anywhere this year. You have a quarterback in Shador that you can at least think has a little bit more to give than he has. Surely you're not going to go Deshaun Watson, especially after he played the victim when he was booed rightly for his terrible performance in the preseason game. The fact that Todd Monken was rushing, it seemed, this weekend to get to his starting quarterback announcement today, it's like, why? I'd let it play out to week 3. If you have any inkling you're going to go Deshaun Watson, you certainly don't name him the starter after a performance like that, and you don't name him the starter after he flamed the entire Cleveland Browns fan base and said it's personal and has nothing to do with my performance. It has everything to do with your performance, you putz. Football fans boo their players when they don't play well. The reason why I and others who aren't in the Cleveland Browns fan base would boo you if we saw you is for the other stuff. Don't take what's going on nationally, globally, and apply it to what's happening locally. Browns fans were booing you Saturday because you sucked. But that entire thing where he's pointing the finger and not the thumb and making himself out to be a victim, somebody who has actual victims in his recent past, has victimized people, and he's going to play the role of victim in all of this? That's the guy that you want to name your starter. That you were in such a hurry promising everybody yesterday, I'm going to name a starter today. You ready for it? First thing in the morning, boom, it's Deshaun Watson. That's what you were hurrying up to get to? I know that our teams, the athletes that we root for, the organizations that we support monetarily by buying tickets and gear and all that kind of stuff, don't love us the way we love them. And I think most of us are okay with that. Right? We're okay with the logic of it anyway. But there's another level to this where I look at the Cleveland Browns and say, not only do you not love your fan base as much as they love you, I don't know that you even respect your fan base. I don't know that you do. Because after that quarterback just insulted the entire fan base and put on a putrid performance, you're going to defend him? You're going to make him your starter? Why? So you could save a little bit of face or hope to save a little bit of face and not be the new Herschel Walker trade? First of all, there's almost 0% chance that's going to happen. Deshaun Watson's going to be terrible. And don't misunderstand me for a second. We're all rooting for him to be an epic failure. Sorry, Browns fans. We're all rooting for it. You're not going to save any face here. You made the worst decision in NFL history bringing this guy in. And you're going to double down on it. After he just insulted your fan base and all of our intelligences by making himself out to be a victim. Just a new low for the Browns organization. It really is. And if you're a fan of the Browns, you do not deserve this. Believe me, we want your team to get absolutely destroyed as long as Deshaun Watson is your quarterback. Like, that's true. But we don't take pleasure in it because we want bad things to happen to you. So it's not personal. Unlike with Deshaun Watson, and he feels like every time you boo him, it is personal. Wonder what would give him that idea. Story number 3 is no news, if I'm being quite honest with it, because Joe Sakic said no update on either the contract extension of Cale Makar or the contract extension of Jared Bednar. Now, I just got done saying that the Jared Bednar one, to me, is more intriguing. Like, I'm eagerly awaiting the Cale Makar deal to see how much he's getting. I guess I would put it at, I am very confident that Cale Makar is going to sign a long-term extension with the Avalanche. My curiosity is just whether Cale's going to take less than market value, and his contract's going to start with a 1 and not a 2, or his annual value of the contract's going to start with a 1 and not a 2. But he's going to sign with the Avs. I mean, if that Western Conference final didn't teach you anything, the Avs need Cale Makar on the ice, healthy, and in an Avs sweater for as long as they can possibly get him. I'm not as confident that Jared Bednar is going to get an extension. I mean, he still could, but that's the one that I feel like you're really going to go into the season. I don't believe they're going to go into the season with Cale Makar not signed. I don't think they're going to make that mistake. That would be a mistake. But with Jared Bednar, I could see them going into the season without giving him an extension. I also think that's a mistake. Not because necessarily I believe that, Jared Bednar, my confidence in him is the highest as it's ever been. It's not. It's actually about the lowest it's ever been. It's just, you don't make your coach in a lame duck year after you are going to the mat for him against the criticism that he received after the Vegas Golden Knights series. You don't back that up by letting him coach essentially for his job this year. So no updates on either. One, I'm more confident will get done than the other. One deadline to note is September 16th. If that day passes and Cale Makar has not signed, all of a sudden he can't sign an 8-year contract. It's only 7. Little detail. I don't think, trust me, I'm not going to be here if they get a 7-year contract extension done with Cale Makar and they save a few bucks because he doesn't charge them full market value. I will not be hemming and hawing about they got him for 7 and not 8. I won't. Maybe I'm short-sighted in that way, but I won't be. Just get him signed to a long-term extension. 7 years, 8 years, just get it done. With Jared Bednar, I don't know. I really don't know. I would think that they'd give him at least a 1-year extension, but not as confident in as I am in that Cale Makar is going to get an extension done before the season. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the 3 stories that are driving the show. That is what is going on in the sports world today. How about what's going on in the financial realm? Well, I'm not qualified to speak on that, but you know who is. Rick Stevens from FRS Financial Group right here in Colorado Springs. Each day he brings us the RBG report. We call it Rick's Best Guess because it's better than my guess or probably your guess. Rick, what have you got today?
Well, Ryan, markets pulled back today as oil prices jumped, and that rally we saw in the bond market yesterday, well, it faded. Now, after Wednesday's announcement from the Treasury that they would be doubling their bond buyback, the rally that started out yesterday turned out to be very short-lived as traders resumed selling off those long-term bonds today. That drove the yields up on the 30-year Treasury. Today's RBG is that with those fluctuations going on in that long end of duration on the bond world, investors will be best served to hang out on the short end of that scale to get better, more consistent yields in those fixed income assets over the next several months. That is today's RBG.
Thanks, Rick. That's Rick Stevens of FRS Financial Group right here in Colorado Springs. Start planning your future today at frsfinancialgroup.com.
Products and investment services offered through LPL Financial, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC. FRS Financial Group is a name used by independent advisors associated with LPL Financial, LLC.
Coming up next, stock up, stock down after the Broncos 33-13 preseason loss to the Packers. I have a tendency to speak in absolutes, and I'm trying to work on it. Never say never. Don't say everyone when I don't mean everyone. Sometimes it's done for effect, but I'm trying to work through it, right? Don't speak in absolutes. Exceptions to every rule, all of that kind of stuff. Not everyone is feeling bad for the Cleveland Browns fan base for having been saddled with Deshaun Watson as their starting quarterback this season. This coming in from the 719. Speak for yourself, Ryan. I absolutely want this for the Browns. Go Steelers. So, consider the source, to be fair. You know what? If there is ever the wounds are never going to heal. That's just it. Because if even Steelers fans can't go, man, that really sucks for the Cleveland Browns. It really sucks that they're starting Deshaun Watson. The fans, I'm even talking about the fans. I'm not talking about the organization. I want all the bad football things to happen to Jimmy Haslam. But I'm saying for the fan base, if Steelers fans can't find it in their heart to feel bad a wee bit for them, then nothing's ever going to. So not everybody, fair enough, not everybody is feeling bad for Cleveland Browns fans. I am. And I know many people are, but not everyone. So, to be fair. All right, let's do a little stock up, stock down. More choices in the latter category than the former category, but I got a couple for each. Let's go stock up. Let's start with one of the big things that we wanted to see on Friday, Bo Nix's ankle. Stock up, look good. Mobility's there. Wasn't wincing. No bad reports after the game. So, that's all good. Stock down, though. Bo Nix, accuracy outside the boundary. Did hit R.J. Harvey on that touchdown pass, but especially when he was on the run, every throw that he missed, he was on the run. And that's something I said, that's something that was part of the story. No, he attempted more passes, a higher percentage of his passes on the move than anybody in the NFL last year. And as a byproduct, his completion percentage was down from his rookie year. If this is going to be his superpower, his mobility, his ability to his escapability, you got to complete more passes. Because then what good does it do? If people are like, oh, goody, Bo Nix is getting outside the pocket. As long as we can keep him from running past the line of scrimmage, he's going to throw an incompletion. So, got to hit those. But I would say at this point, the more important thing was definitely seeing the ankle in his debut, and it looked pretty good. Stock up Jalen Waddle. Just the one catch, but showed you every reason why Jalen Waddle is with the Denver Broncos. Beat his man immediately off the line of scrimmage. Not everybody on the Broncos can do that. In fact, not many Broncos receivers can separate immediately like Jalen Waddle did. And even with the defender right on him, he was still able to make the catch on what I didn't think was the best throw from Bo Nix and turn it upfield. So what we thought Jalen Waddle's fit would be, what he would bring to the Broncos offense, certainly showed that in that one catch. But that is one more catch than Troy Franklin had. And that's why it's stocked down on Troy Franklin. Not one catch. Not one target. Did not show up in the box score at all. You wouldn't even know that he played in the game. And I've been saying, I don't know if Denver's a town big enough for he and Pat Bryant. And I'm seeing articles today. I talked about this last week, and I'm seeing articles now being written. Are they going to try a Devon Vele type deal where they trade somebody, get a mid-round pick. They use the Vele pick on Jonah Coleman. And I said last week that was probably going to be Troy Franklin. And we know Bo likes to look for Troy Franklin if he's on the field. 16 snaps. It's about as much as anybody got. Not even a target for Troy Franklin. Keep an eye on him. And wait for the murmurs are even starting already that they may be trying to find a new home for Troy Franklin. It makes practical sense here, right? We've talked about this. You have Jalen Waddle and you have Cortland Sutton, and everybody loves Pat Bryant, and supposedly Evan Ingram is going to be a bigger part of this. And they got 3 running backs, and Bo Nix needs to run. There's one football. There's only so many plays in a game, and the Broncos offense went 3 and out a lot last year. So there's even less. You can't have all of these guys. If somebody is intrigued by Troy Franklin's speed, I mean, he certainly flashed that a couple of times over the past couple of years. You got to trade him. It just doesn't seem like he has a spot in the regular rotation. And that would be a demotion from what he has had the last couple of years. So that would make sense to move him out. So stock down on Troy Franklin. Stock down on Evan Ingram being a bigger part of the Broncos offense. He didn't catch a ball. So, let's call him Jeff Hewerman. I don't know why that name popped into my head. Adam Troutman caught a pass. So, I guess it's not stock down Evan Ingram. It's stock down on the Broncos using tight ends in a non-Sean Payton way this year. That's stock down. Because Evan Ingram, not a thing on Friday. Adam Troutman was, though. And we know Sean Payton loved to get Adam Troutman involved. Stock up the use of the fullback. Adam Prentice, again, making himself seen with the run. Now not as productive as he was against Atlanta, but let's be honest, nobody except Bo Nix was more productive against Green Bay than they were against Atlanta, and that's just because Bo Nix didn't play. But the use of the fullback, I'm down. And Sean Payne wasn't fullback adverse, but it seems like Davis Webb, bigger believer in the fullback. And football traditionalists rejoice in concert. Adam Prentice, might see him get a few 3rd and short. I mean, handing the ball to Adam Prentice would have been smarter than running Jared Stidham on a bootleg in the AFC Championship. So stock up, use to the fullback in Davis Webb's offense. Add one more stock down. What was my other stock down? Now I'll think of it. It was probably some pithy comment. So it's okay. That's stock up, stock down. After the Broncos 33-13 loss to the Green Bay Packers in preseason game number 2. Now it's on to Minnesota. What'd you like? What'd you not like? More importantly, because there wasn't a ton to like from the Denver Broncos in preseason game number 2. I'll take your thoughts. 719-24-7-1313. Back after this. Update on the health of Riley Moss. Sean Payton spoke on it today. There were reports over the weekend about this too. Had to leave the game with what appeared to be a rib injury. That injury is not considered serious. So we'll see if Riley Moss ends up playing on Friday. I would say abundance of caution, but two things. One, Jalen Waddle played on Friday. I didn't fully expect him to for the same reason. And also because of the answer Sean Payton gave to a question on Friday about whether he's seen enough from Bo Nix.
And I'm not getting into next week's. I want to play them all till the third quarter next week. So let's figure out the tape tomorrow, see where we're at, and let's do what's best for us as we prepare for the Chiefs.
So Riley Moss might be in there on Friday against Minnesota. Who knows? Sean Payton displeased, as you might expect, with Friday's outing, which does bring up another thing when it comes to the Broncos and their depth or lack thereof. Like, at what point do we sound the alarm on Jahdae Barron? Okay, because, like, look, nobody on the Broncos defense, and I mean Zach Allen. Yeah, Zach Allen played well. Nobody outside Zach Allen played well on Friday for the Broncos defense. First team, second team, third team, fifth team. None of them were good, except Zach Allen. But like I'm seeing this, like Jahdae Barron, you know, there's just so much talent in okay, but then one of two things I need answered here with Jahdae Barron. One, is he not as talented as those guys? Because he is a first round pick. So kind of feel like the talent should be showing through to the point where he would be on the field. And the second thing is, and Tom, if you're listening, I know you're going to love this one. Why did you draft him in the first round? If you had so much talent in the secondary, why didn't you look to another position? If you thought that Jahdae Barron was going to have no upward mobility in your defense for 2 years. I don't think it's good. I'll just say that. And I'm not saying that you got to be out on Jahdae Barron forever and ever. It's not good that he other than when Kareem Reed basically served up the ball on a silver platter against Atlanta, you haven't noticed Jahdae Barron in practice or in games much. That's not good. I'll just say that. I'll hold out hope because you know how I cling to the draft picks that I say on draft night I like. I'm going to cling to them for a little while. But like, I get it. There's talent, but he's supposed to be talented. Given where he was drafted, the only guy in the secondary that should be more talented or more deserving to be on the field than him is Pat Surtain. And I'm not saying you have to be beholden to draft position, but if you draft a guy in the first round, that means you believe that he has tremendous talent. So, not time to hit the panic button just yet. And hearing some things that teams are starting to look around the league. It's about that time. Teams starting to look around the league. Where are we light? Where did we lose a player due to injury? And start looking. Maybe some teams sniffing around the Broncos to try and get Riley Moss for cheap on an expiring deal. We'll see. But I would think that the Broncos will keep Riley Moss if right now they trust him more than Jahdae Barron. And if that is the case, we may have to start asking some questions about Jahdae Barron. Not yet, but maybe soon. Nobody really ran the ball well for the Broncos in that game. So I just did stock up, stock down. I'm not going to do stock down on Jonah Coleman. I held out on that because I think he made the best of a bad situation. Like the Packers were hunting in packs. He was surrounded by Packers every time he touched the ball, but certainly not, taking, and this is true of the entire Broncos team. Everything that they did good or did well because English against Atlanta, they kind of undid all of that against Green Bay. And why should Jonah Coleman, a fourth round rookie, be any different? So I'm going to keep him off of stock down, but certainly it wasn't him continuing what he showed against Atlanta. I remember what the other stock down was, and it's not as important as the other ones. That's why it escaped my mind. But this is what we're riding the wave on each and every week. Stock down on Jared Stidham holding down the second position for quarterback. I thought he separated himself quite a bit from Sam Ehlinger after the Atlanta game because as well as the Broncos played overall, Sam Ehlinger did not play well. And compared to the way Jared Stidham played, it's like, oh, this isn't even a question. Why was anyone even floating it out there that there was a competition for the second quarterback spot behind Bo Nix? It's Jared Stidham, obviously. He was not good. Quite bad, actually, Jared Stidham. It was like AFC Championship Jared Stidham against the Green Bay Packers. So maybe there is a glimmer of hope for Sam Ehlinger, although tell me the good thing that Sam Ehlinger did in that game. But I thought that it was a cinch that Jared Stidham would be the backup. Why even question it? It's so silly. We had to talk about real quarterback competitions, and we're talking about the vice presidential race here, the one heartbeat away. And I know it matters because of what happened in the AFC Championship, but I think the lesson learned there is that if Bo Nix gets hurt, the Broncos are toast regardless. So it doesn't really matter who they're putting in there for that particular game, whatever it might be. Bo Nix has to be starting. But, yeah, I don't think Jared Stidham has sewn up that QB2 job. That throw he made that was picked off, that was rough. But that's why they play 3. And it's perfect that they play 3 instead of 4, although the fourth game no one ever played. But it's good because you have 3, because you have one good Broncos preseason game, you have one bad one, and now the Minnesota game can be the tiebreaker. And look, I'm leaving I'm putting stock into what's happening in the preseason. So if the Broncos bounce back on Friday, then we got 2 good ones, one not so good one, and a not so good one when the first team offense did move the ball a bit. So it wasn't all bad, but it was like 99% bad for the Broncos on Friday. Another thing that, we talked about DeMar DeRozan on the Denver Nuggets now, and a lot of debate on social media and stuff. And I've been asked about this a few times in the last few days about DeMar DeRozan's role with the Denver Nuggets. There was a few reasons why on Friday I likened the signing of DeMar DeRozan to the signing of Russell Westbrook. One was the Nuggets doing this thing again where, you feel terrible about where we are, but here's this former all-star player that we're going to dangle in front of you, and you're like, oh, that's a big name. That's one of the bigger names that the Nuggets have ever acquired. So it reminds me of that in that way, but also the idea with Russell Westbrook is you go with that mess of a second unit and you just do your thing. Just go and do your thing, man. It's the same thing with DeMar DeRozan. I don't see how he's going to start. And somebody posed it to me, well, you can move Christian Brown to the bench. And now he can be in a better position. And I say, okay, but now you're weakening the starting five. And for all of Christian Brown's faults, I would still make him the second. I mean, he's a better defensive player than Jamal Murray or Nikola Jokic. So, I mean, you got to have some defense in the starting five. So it's like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul here. Like moving Christian Brown back to the bench. Okay. Like I like him on the bench better, but I don't know that I like the Nuggets starting lineup with DeMar DeRozan in it better. And let's keep the strength. I get there's debates both ways. Like, do you take from a strength, apply it to a weakness to try and balance yourself out? But sometimes you just say, you know what? There's one thing that works with our team, and we're going to stick with it. We're not going to mess with it. Even with Christian Brown's faults, that starting five puts up a ton of points. They don't need DeMar DeRozan to add more scoring to the starting five. What they need DeMar DeRozan to do, if he's still capable, is to run the second unit and to just do whatever he wants. Just do it. I don't believe in a single guy that they got coming off the bench this upcoming season. So DeMar DeRozan, do your thing. It's the same thing with Russell Westbrook. Just like go do your thing, Russ. It's not like Russ was going to share the ball with anybody. Just do your thing. And then they started playing in crunch time, and then he started missing layups with the game on the line, and then that's when things got bad. When Russell Westbrook was good, when Russell Westbrook was fun on the Denver Nuggets, it was just, let's go to the bench now, and here comes Russell Westbrook, and he's running at 110 miles an hour and just doing his thing, and you're like, well, it can't get any worse with the non-Jokic minutes. Same thing with DeMar DeRozan. You put him in the starting five to try and put Christian Brown with the second unit, and that might be better, although you're not taking into account that the Nuggets bench was better when Christian Brown was in there. I mean, the guys around him were better. So would Christian Brown have the same impact? But now you're making the biggest Achilles heel of the Denver Nuggets worse, and you're making it worse in the starting five by putting DeMar DeRozan in his complete inability or unwillingness to guard another human being on the basketball court. I don't want that. In the second unit, it's like, whatever, just throw stuff up against the wall and see what sticks. But yeah, don't take something that's actually good with the Denver Nuggets and make it worse. I don't think Christian Brown's great for that. But I think DeMar DeRozan will be worse. So I think DeMar DeRozan is coming off the bench. And I think that's why the Denver Nuggets, you saw that over the weekend, the amount of Nuggets who went to DeMar DeRozan, like, what are we doing here? Like, it's so Nuggets, because you remember, like, getting Paul Millsap was a nice pickup. Like, I'm not going to play revisionist history. That was a nice pickup for the Denver Nuggets. They treated him like they're the Sixers landing Braun. Like they had a marching band. And I get it. It's where Paul Millsap went to, but there was so much fanfare for the arrival of Paul Millsap in Denver. The idea that Aaron Gordon and Jokic and Murray got to pull on the full court press to get DeMar DeRozan to agree to join the Denver Nuggets, to be a bench player. Like, how many offers did DeMar DeRozan get that the Denver Nuggets had to send out every one of their stars to try and convince him to join the team? I don't think it's going to work out. Like, I'll just reiterate that here at the end. I don't think that DeMar DeRozan is going to be exactly what the Nuggets are missing, but what have you got to lose with that second unit, right? But then the issue becomes you're not playing him with Jokic as much with the bench. So is he going to be effective? We talked about part of the reason why DeMar DeRozan might put up better numbers with the Nuggets than he did the Kings is because he'd be playing with Nikola Jokic. But on the bench, you don't want him to play with Nikola Jokic. It just, all that to say, it's not a great fit. It's really not. And if the Nuggets think that everything is hunky-dory after making this move, they are sadly mistaken, especially since they're going to get rid of somebody else between now and the beginning of the season. So there's that. Before I go, want to fit this in. Tomorrow, got a game day men's health appointment. Another blood test, checking the levels, checking in, seeing how things are going. Feel great. We'll see if my numbers back it up here. One thing I learned about sitting down with Nikki and the folks there at game day is that, there could be some underlying things that are going wrong with you, especially when you're like me and you've crossed that threshold into being 40 or older, that you may not know unless you get, blood tests and things like that. And the good news is if there is something like that, you don't have to accept it just because you're getting older. They have a lot of treatments that can help you with things like weight loss, testosterone replacement therapy, sexual health, any other wellness goals that you might have. They can help you out. Get your appointment scheduled, GameDayMen'sHealth.com, and tell them that I sent you. Great people to work with, and you'll enjoy it as much as I do. And it's kind of like going in a doctor's office. It's crazy, right? Talk to you tomorrow.